you thought last week was a goal fest, well, try this week. Hello, I'm Robert Wheatley, and on this edition of Soccer Central, you'll definitely see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Between Zorro and Hannibal Lecter.
Nick Theodorakopoulos joins us as our special guest, and he's never short of an opinion, and we chat to Marconi skipper Dominic Longo. While from Adelaide, we'll check whether City will be a force with captain Aurelio Vidmar. And we'll take you on a tour of Canberra skipper Robbie Hooker's palatial digs. No need to blink here. This is Soccer Central. Great to have you with us for the next hour for the very best of our own National Soccer League. And join us in the studio, our regular guest, Michael Cockrell. Good evening.
Robbie.
And sitting in for Paul Wade this weekend, as we said, always with an opinion, Nick Theodorakopoulos.
Cheers, Robbie.
Nick, there were goals and they came flooding in on the weekend, 30 goals, but it was superseded by one worrying aspect.
Yes, we saw the 30 goals, as you've just said, and we had 32 yellow cards, Rob, something that a lot of coaches obviously can't talk about for obvious reasons, but I currently sit on the other side of the fence, or no fence, I should say, and the fact is that 32 cards are too many yellow cards, and I think a lot of coaches would like to comment, and as I said, they can't. So maybe we should, or the referees should look at exactly what they do when semi-finals come round. They're a little bit softer. They know the crowd wants to see the stars in action. So maybe they should have that softer approach, because I know at the end of the day, there's not enough players in the National League to go around. So if we're going to have players suspended in round 8, 9 or 10 for 1 week already, I think a lot of coaches are going to be disappointed.
Well, the shackles aren't on you, Michael Cockrell. It is a worrying aspect, an average of 4 per game. They really just could come out on the weekend.
The referees will tell you they're in a bit of a cleft stick because they have the instructions from FIFA, which obviously Gary Power, as the director of referees, has to pass on to his men. And you've got the pressure from above, basically, to strictly enforce the law. And then you've got the people on the park and perhaps in the grandstands who want to see a bit more leniency. And that's the problem that these referees have week after week. I think, as most people do, that common sense is a crucial factor, which is too often overlooked in the black and white, if you like, of the FIFA guidelines. By all means, clamp down on the things we want to see disappear from the game, tackle from behind, some unduly rough play, but things like back chat, things like, that probably could be let go, dissent, those sort of things. I think we see too many cards for those sort of incidences.
I agree totally, Mike, especially the fact of players talking to referees or being a little bit aggressive, not going over the top, but we see a lot of English football through the electronic media, and I should say on TV, and you'll find that a lot of referees do take a little bit of chat, and sometimes even
the more mature ones do
answer back as well. I mean, I saw a referee recently, I think it was an Italian game, push a couple of players away. So, can you just imagine one of the players, or the referee, I should say, pushing one of the boys away at our level here? So maybe they should be a little bit lenient on that major factor, which is the communication.
Well, one area that hasn't been lenient, gentlemen, was the fact that in round 3, 24 goals, we stepped it up to 30 goals in round 4. That's got to be pleasing, Michael.
Absolutely, and as we keep saying, we don't have big enough crowds here, and we want to bring more people in through the gate. Obviously, goals is the best way of doing it, particularly good goals, and we've seen plenty of them this season so far. Also from the dead ball, and I really think it's important, as we see this goal there from Brendan Reno, to emphasise that the coaches, for mine, have started to work a little bit harder on the training paddock with the dead ball situation. I've seen some interesting variations of free kicks this season, and I like it. It should happen more often.
Well, what about this for a free kick? That is just superb.
David Lee?
Yeah, David Lee. If you can just picture 15 or 20,000 people at a ground in Europe and in a goal like that going in, we'd be seeing it over and over again.
Good to see some goals going at North Sydney Oval as well, because they've suffered through a lot of 0-0 draws at the Northern Spirit, and that goal from Hassel was something special.
Certainly was a great goal. And let's have a look then. On top of the scorers list is Carlton's Archie Thompson, who picked up a double last week. The Kingz' Tim Stevens is a clear second with 4 goals, while there is a host of players on 3, including the Northern Spirit's Ben Burgess, courtesy of that hat-trick against the Kingz. Well, let's take a look then at the National League table after 4 rounds, and it's still very congested at the top of that table. Despite copping a hammering last week, Sydney United is still a point clear from Carlton, Olympic and the defending champs Wollongong. Those 3 clubs still undefeated. Next on 7 is the Spirit and Marconi, with 3 clubs a point further back. Relief for Adelaide City, climbing off the bottom with their first win of the season, but still plenty of concern for the Eastern Pride and Newcastle, with both clubs still winless after 4 rounds. This week, just the one match on Friday night in round 5. It's a clash between the Kingz and the Force across the Tasman. On Saturday, 3 matches with the Spirit taking on Newcastle in Gosford, Parramatta hosting the Cosmos, and Brisbane travelling to Wollongong Wolves. On Sunday, the big Melbourne derby with South Melbourne and the Knights doing battle. Sydney United take on Marconi, Olympic clashes with Carlton, and the Pride welcomes Perth to Mobile Park. The captaincy at Marconi is one of the most prized jobs in the National League, but with it comes a mountain of pressure and expectation. In the hot seat is Marconi veteran Dominic Longo. At 30, he's nearing 120 games for the Stallions, and his work at the back is crucial to their success this season. Marconi is hovering just inside the top 6 with 2 wins from their 4 matches. This week, they face frontrunners Sydney United, and Dominic joins us in the Soccer Central studios as we speak. Join us in one piece, but we'll focus on one thing, Dominic. That eye looks to be battered around a bit.
Yeah, it's still there, Rob. Not want to get a bit of a close-up on it, mate. No, thanks.
We've got the close-up, but we'll regard that as a part of the trade.
Yeah, you know, and you take some, you give some. You know, I copped one on the weekend, ended up with 5 stitches in the eyebrow, but yeah, that's football, Rob, yeah.
Are you enjoying being the captain this season, Dominic?
Yeah, it's great. It's a real honour. I've seen the people come and do it before me, like Bugsy and Andrew Harper, John Paul DeMarini, so just to carry on that role is, yeah, I suppose it's a tradition that'll continue forever, but I'm lucky enough to have the armband this year.
Is it true that it guarantees you a place in the team every week?
I wish, no. No, I don't think at all. Mike, but we've got 25 guys or 30 guys this year fighting for positions, so it's very competitive, and I'm going to have to fight all the way against the other guys as well.
Dom, your usual stopping partner, Mark Babbage, not there at the moment. Tell us the difference with Angelo Costanzo at the back.
Angelo's very accomplished on the ball, you know. He's very silky sort of defender. He can attack as well as defend. He's very committed in a tackle, communicates well, you know. He's like a complete player as far as I'm concerned. You know, I've only seen him play closely for 3 or 4 months, but what I've seen, you know, I've been impressed with.
Dom, just turning your mind back to the game of the weekend, it was one of the blue chip encounters. Going into the game, you guys were confident, but always tough against South Melbourne. Yeah,
I mean, South Melbourne's had virtually the same side now for quite a few years, Rob, so we've got a new bunch of guys who've only been together for 3 or 4 months, so we always knew it was going to be a difficult task, but we're willing to give it 100%.
2 schools of thought, Dominic. One that Marconi were lucky to get out of it in the end, but the other that you did enough in that second half to deserve a point.
Yeah, well, I thought in the first half, South Melbourne pushed up on us very well and stopped us from playing the ball out and playing our natural game. It virtually resorted to a English-type sort of situation of the battle of the midfields. And then the second half, they sort of backed off a bit and gave us a bit of a chance to move. And you can see here, there's quite a few chances that we had.
And at the other end, of course, South Melbourne had their chances. We just see that back pass incidents, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later. But yeah, South Melbourne did open you up a couple of times in that second half as well, which obviously must be a bit of a concern. Yeah,
I mean, I think going 1-0 down at home, we want to have as many wins as we can at home this year. We're not going to sort of give any room away, and we were pressing forward for the equalising goal. And okay, it might have left us a bit short in the midfield at the backs and at the back, so those counter-attacks were sort of an inevitable sort of result, Mike.
Well, I think South Melbourne are going to be there at the end of the year, Mike, and obviously Dom. So I think that a 1-1 draw against a side that's going to figure in the top 2 or 3 spots all season, I think should be positive. I'm sure Eddie would have been quite happy overall.
Yeah, I think in the end, the 1-1 result we were quite happy with. I suppose we could have played a little bit better, but against a team like South Melbourne, it's always going to be very difficult, Nick. Yeah.
Well, let's, Dom, focus on the one key point, probably for a lot of fans in the club after the game and around the country, that back pass. You were a long way from it, probably, but you've had a chance to look at it in replay?
Yeah, I had a bit of a chance to have a look at it recently, Rob, yeah, and the free kick inside the box I was a bit surprised with. I think it's the first sort of chance that we've had that. Yeah, there it is.
The opinion is divided here.
Now, hold it a sec. Let me start. Well, let me ask Mike, is that a back pass, mate?
Absolutely, 100%, because if you look at it closely, I mean, Fausto Diamicis, his right leg is for getting on the bus only, and he could have got this away with his left foot if he wasn't intending to direct it to the keeper. He's put the right foot out straight down to Michael Petkovic, and if you were at the game as I was, you would see there wasn't too many protesting South Melbourne
Mike, can explain a defender that experience, surely. You know, he wouldn't be passing back in that particular situation at all.
I think he wanted the keeper to kick it away.
Yeah, well, Fausto, the best of times can't pass the ball straight. Sorry, Fausto. I know
we'll
you're
get
watching.
Back to
you. He's obviously going to call me. No, but on a serious note, he's been beaten for pace from Christian Kerr.
Yes.
He's slid across, and all he's really interested in is taking the ball away from Christian. So for mine, I've got to disagree with Mike.
Yeah, what about any second looks at that, Dom, that confirm it one way or another for you?
I tend to think if I was in that, I'm putting myself in the same situation. If I was lunging like that, I wouldn't want it to go too close to the keeper. If I wanted it to go out, I would have just headed for the line. You know, it looks like he has actually intentionally sort of played it back to the keeper with the hope of the keeper belting it out of the ground. But I think Mike's actually picked it up, which I don't know. Fausto wouldn't have been too happy with. I don't think.
And let's not forget Brendan Reno, great finish. It wasn't easy.
No, it was a great finish. No, but he meant it to go there, and
that's what he's saying,
he said, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm full confidence in Rexy. If he picks out a spot with that left peg of his, he hits it sweet.
Mick said earlier that a lot of the coaches were practising free kicks. Surely Eddie didn't have you guys just outside the 6-yard box practising free kicks.
But I'm sure it was well teed up, and that's certainly the combination. But it was an important one that late to the finish of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't too confident in it going in from that sort of range because actually the closer you get to the goal, the harder it is actually to score most of the time. You know, usually have walls of about 10 players, but to see that one go in the top corner like that was something special. Right?
All right, certainly was. Well, Marconi's opponents are Sydney United, who started the season in devastating form, but they certainly came back to earth with a thud last weekend against Carlton. And, this was from the power and the glory really down to a lesson, Nick, in this situation.
Yeah, if I can just comment on Archie Thompson first. What a fabulous first touch there from the pack across. And we subsequently see the second goal being a penalty. But what a great touch and a good finish from Archie Thompson, Mick.
Yeah, he's on fire, isn't he? And Sydney United, the other end, had Aaron Basic and Awaratifi. Not a great afternoon for them. Aaron Basic looks like he'll be out for a couple of weeks. So he'll miss the game against Marconi this weekend. But just on that subject, Dominic, Francis Awaratifi back to haunt you, if you like. I mean, you've trained with him for the last few years. You know all about his game. It's going to be some battle between you two on the weekend.
Yeah, I thought he was going to retire last year.
You hoped?
You were hoping.
No,
It's good to see him playing well, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, great. I think it's good for the game, you know. He had a few knee problems last year, but it's great to see Franny back in action. And, it'll be good to meet up with him again this week. Look forward to it.
Has the bubble burst for Sydney United?
I think it's too early to say. It's 3 wins from 4 games, and irrespective of a 4-0 loss, if I can go back to last year, Wollongong lost 4-0 to Sydney Olympic at home, and they went on to win the league. So, Alan, if you're watching, don't despair.
He probably is watching too, Nick, but any lessons learned, I suppose, that he really did set a precedent. It was going well. His strikers were there. He'll now see it from the other side of the fence a bit, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, coaches, a lot of the times after a loss, especially if it's a heavy loss, you really sit there and put yourself in a difficult position by saying, gosh, it was 4-0 or 3-0, what do I have to do? But a loss is a loss. A lot of things change the course of a match, and maybe if they lost 3-1 or 3-2, he wouldn't be as worried. But I don't think he's got too much to worry about at the moment. It's a long season, and he's won 3 out of 4, and that's the way he should be looking at it.
Dom, you're pretty happy with your start to the season at Marconi?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, we've played some quite tough teams. Parramatta Power, they've done a lot of rebuilding in the off-season. South Melbourne, Canberra at home. Yeah, so we've had, quite a difficult run. I think we're quite happy. Wollongong away down there, they're no easy beats. They sort of pipped us in the last minute. So I think we're quite happy. Like I said before, we've got a relatively new bunch of guys. I think we've got something like 13 or 14 new players this year. So just to get together and mix and get to know how each other play, it's quite difficult. We've only been together for 4 months, so the commitment from them has been great, and I can only see us going on to do better.
Having a new squad, Dom, and going back to the Wollongong match, you lost 1-0 in the dying moments there.
Yep.
What sort of, did you lose your level of confidence? Were the players looking at each other after the game or during the course of the week leading up to the South Melbourne game?
No. Straight after the game, actually, we watched the video on the bus back to Sydney, and other than the goal at the end, I thought we had quite a few opportunities.
What happened there, Dom?
Pardon?
What happened there with that goal?
Oh,
you put your head down and...
That's my question.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit of a communications error, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who decided to let it go, and I take full responsibility for it, Yeah, so...
So does a loss have greater repercussions with that captaincy role, Dom, or has it made it harder for you to lead things or accept things like that?
Personally, I've always sort of, even when Brad was there the last few years, I've sort of been a captain, but someone without an armband, you know. I've tried to rev the boys up because I take it very personally when I go on the field, you know, and I think most players do. I don't think it's gotten any worse, but sure, I mean, before the game, motivating players and you worry about little things, but yeah, it hasn't changed that much. But
Still can't get a rub before the game.
No, that's left to the... If you're over 25 these days, Rob, you don't get a rub, mate.
All right, well, plenty at stake in this one, and definitely a match not to be missed. Marconi against Sydney United. Will Alan Hunter's boys recover from last week's thrashing, or are they set to lose top spot on the table? Find out live on Sunday, right here on C7. Dominic Longo will stay with us as we take a break on Soccer Central. Plenty more National League action in just a moment. Despite the turmoil of the off-season, few would have expected Newcastle to be languishing at the bottom of the table after 4 rounds. But that's exactly where they are coming into Saturday night's crucial match against Northern Spirit. A full replay here on C7 from North Power Stadium in Gosford. Lee Sterry will be extremely frustrated. Last week, another big crowd at Marathon Stadium, but unfortunately, another 2-0 defeat, this time to Parramatta.
Yeah, Rob, there are real problems up there in Newcastle. I know it's early days, but I think the fact they missed, and we talked about this during the call of the game, they missed 3 weeks of the pre-season because of all the problems in the ownership of the club, and that was the 3 of the last 4 weeks going into the first game. So they're a little bit underdone, not as sharp as they should be. There's Bobby Catlin making a mistake. He was back for the first time this season, and Parramatta were definitely the better side. Newcastle's forte, if you like, last season was they kept things nice and compact. They didn't allow other teams to play, and at the moment there are too many gaps appearing in their defence.
Well, Mick, let's add that incident with Johnny Bonavoglia's goal, where Asala Massey came from an offside position at 0-0, changes the course of the game, and obviously as a coach, it's a bit of an excuse. Maybe if that goal had gone in, maybe if it counted, it would have been a different ball game. I know there's a few maybes in there, but it was a crucial part of the game just before half-time, and going in at 1-0, I think would have been critical to lift the spirits of the Newcastle boys.
Just from that coaching perspective, though, Nick, the preparation far from the situation Lee Sterry would have liked.
Yeah, I don't know why the players didn't continue their training. Surely they would have gone to other clubs. So why did they fall behind their own preparation? Only God knows.
It's not the situation that you've confronted, really. I mean, you've had some good preparations, Dom, but the players really need to settle. We've only had a month of a season. Does it take that long for a team to get into full speed?
Yeah, I think it does, especially if you change your surroundings, like Newcastle going to Marathon Stadium now. The team was obviously unsettled with everything that happened, and that has an effect on players at training because you're not too sure what's going to be happening, so you're not going 100%. So it's going to take them a little bit longer to get up to full speed and really all guns blazing.
Well, the good news is Bobby Catlin, despite that nasty wound, is going to play against the Northern Spirit this weekend, although they have an injury problem with Asala Massey, who, as you would know, Nick, is a big loss if he doesn't play. And there we see the cut for Big Bobby. And I'd just like to bring up a point here. The National League, for the first time, has allowed a reserve goalkeeper on the bench this season, and I know coaches have argued for that for a long time. For the second time since the season started, we've had a situation where a goalkeeper has had to go off. We had Brett Hughes going off in the first round for Sydney United and Bobby last weekend. So applaud Soccer Australia for taking the initiative. I think most clubs and certainly most coaches appreciate it.
Well, we can't. We did cast some aspersions at the top of the show, Dominic, about Bobby. We referred to him as a word I don't think we should let get around. But guys, we're going to be very careful that doesn't get back to him.
His solicitor's been on the phone wanting you to talk about the word ugly a little bit more.
It's not the ugly, Bob. We've got to reinforce that particular point. But Dom, that's Bobby Catlin back into the fold there at that stage. But they just can't afford to have players out of their side at Newcastle at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, when you've had a couple of losses up early, you need a bit of experience there to hold the fort and guide the boys into a winning position the next game. And yeah, I mean, having experience like Bobby out would certainly dampen their chances a bit. But I'm sure that the guys up there, the ball will bounce the right way once. They'll get one up, and then the spirits will lift, and you know, Newcastle will be on a roll like they did all last year.
Certainly can pick up their form very quickly. But in contrast to Newcastle's poor form, Northern Spirit seem to be firing. They found the net 4 times against the Kingz, and that hasn't happened too often in the last 2 seasons.
Well, the highlight of this game undoubtedly was the hat-trick to Ben Burgess, the first time a Northern Spirit player has scored a hat-trick, so that says a lot about their goal-scoring problems. His first hat-trick ever at senior level as well. And another first was the first time there's ever been 6 goals at North Sydney Oval. Now, I don't know if the fact the groundsman left the grass a little bit longer is something to do with it. You may laugh, but the pitch at North Sydney, as Dom would appreciate, is the quickest in the league. It makes it very hard to control the ball. And I think the fact that the grass is a bit longer just held it up long enough for people to, you know, settle on the ball.
Yeah, we saw Ben Burgess in the opening few rounds of the season. Obviously didn't score, and I think the fact that he's come quickly to the fore with 3 goals, I think his confidence will lift. And let's not forget, strikers are all about confidence, and Ben Burgess with 3 under his hat will be a big play to handle for the Newcastle defence.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Going back to what Mike was saying about the North Sydney pitch, it is very, very quick. I wouldn't be complaining about it being an inch or 2 longer because it tends to slow the ball down a bit, Mike. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there, mate.
And Craig Foster could be making his debut for the Spirit this weekend. Dom, you know him well from your time at Marconi. A big acquisition for them?
Yeah, no, I saw Craig up in Lismore only a month or so ago, and yeah, I had a bit of a chat to him, and he gave me the implication that he might be heading down to North Sydney. So, yeah, I mean, he's a great asset, and I think he'll do very well for them. Newcastle
has certainly got the players, I feel, Rob, especially up front. I know Asala's under an injury cloud, but Johnny Bonavoglia sooner or later will hit the form that you know, caught the imagination of basically everybody last year. And I don't think that Newcastle out of it. Obviously, with not too many points early on, I think you'll find that they'll bounce back to form. I'm not saying that they're going to win, but they're going to show a lot of improvement. And I think they're more than capable of quickly moving up the ladder.
Yeah, no one doubts that they're more than capable of doing that. But a big promotion for the Northern Spirit on the Central Coast for their Round 5 match against Newcastle. They drew around 11,000 for a match there last season and are expecting even more for this local derby. The Spirit were on the Central Coast during the week for a training session and to drum up interest in the match. A crucial one for both sides, with the Spirit wary of struggling Newcastle United.
Good. Get in there, Daniel.
Newcastle haven't been travelling well, but they're a bogey side for us. In the 2 years that we've played them, we haven't beaten them before. I know their coach Lee Sterry well, and he organises his team very well, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be very hard to beat. I would rather play a team that's at least won a couple of games out of the first 4 games, because I think Newcastle will come out on Saturday night desperate for a victory. And, you know, they've been stung in the first 4 rounds, and I think they'll be looking to repair it starting on Saturday night.
They're a very competitive side. They haven't started off the season quite well, so we're going to put a little bit of pressure on them at first and try and get 1 or 2 early on to put them even under an immense pressure.
Well, the formula seemed to be right, didn't it, Mike? The early goals for Spirit settled the side. Ben Burgess was very mobile, and they're looking to repeat that against a bit of out-of-form Newcastle side.
Yeah, I think they can, and I think it's good news that the Spirit have finally started to deliver on their potential. Graham Arnold, I know, is wrapped with the squad he's got. I mean, he had to use a lot of kids last year. This time he's got experienced players on the bench. That helps, obviously. You've got players like Craig Foster coming in, Scotty Thomas as well. So he's got the cover there. A good move taking the game to the Central Coast as well. We talked about the crowd there last year. That was against Canberra. This time around, they've got Newcastle just up the road and are going to bring a few busloads of fans down. So I'd like to see 15,000, 20,000 people, and I think it can happen.
I'm sure it can happen. An interesting reference there to Graham Arnold. He said he'd like a team to have had a couple of wins under his belt. Is that an honest comment from a coach, Nick, given your perspective in the game?
I don't know if he's playing up to lead, but I certainly would like to play the team that doesn't have the confidence and maybe get an early goal, as Chichi said. I think that's the main thing that the Spirit players would be looking at. An early goal against a side that is struggling certainly will go a long way to winning the game for them.
And on a pitch with a lot more grass than the North Sydney Oval. But like Newcastle, the Canberra Cosmos are another club battling for survival. A win and a draw in their last 2 games has given them tremendous confidence, but probably their greatest asset is skipper Robbie Hooker, who along with teammate Marcus Phillips boast a pretty impressive address in the nation's capital. We join them for a tour.
Make a result last night, Sparky? We were due to win, weren't we? Yeah. I don't know how Hayes got man of the match though. Oh, here's the palace. There we go.
Not quite the Palace, but this is still home for Canberra skipper Robbie Hooker and their big off-season buy Marcus Phillips.
What have you got there? No, not much in.
The local caravan park, just a free kick away from their other home, Bruce Stadium.
It's very handy to everything that we need, and it's quiet as well. I mean, there's no problems with getting a good early night's sleep around here. The only thing stopping us is ourselves.
Lucky, have you got any washing that needs to be done? I haven't, Ums, what, you going to do it? No, I was just wondering if you had any to do.
Good on you.
Ironing? Washing? I'm sorry, no. Yeah, well, of course it does. I mean, training, come home from training, but I just chuck stuff in the corner, then after a couple of days you start to wonder what the smell is, so you have to do something about it.
Getting sick of doing your washing, Sparky. Your training gear is killing me.
We're good mates. I've known him as long as I've known anyone in Australia. The first year we didn't mix too much, but then the following year I was his taxi. I was driving him all around when he was at Marconi, and then the last few weeks he's repaid the favour.
I've known Marcus for about 4 years when he first came to Sydney United. We joined Sydney United together. We didn't spend a lot of time together at Sydney United, basically because I lived at one end of Sydney and he lived at the other end, and we got on well at training and stuff, and he's the sort of guy that's pretty easy to get along with. He likes to have a good laugh, as I do myself. And it wasn't until we really met up again at Marconi that we really started sort of getting to know each other a lot better.
All right, mate, I'm going to go put the laundry on and see if you can organise some dinner for us. All right, I ain't got much money on me, so I'll just get the essentials, okay? All right, mate, see you in a minute.
For Robbie Hooker, Canberra is where his career started with the Institute of Sport. Since then, he's lived the life of a true professional, with stints with Sydney City, Olympic, West Adelaide, Sydney United and Marconi. When you consider the off-field problems at Canberra, Robbie could well have moved on again, but he stayed loyal.
The main reason I wanted to stay was because of Tom. There's not too many people and coaches around that are like him, and I think he's probably the main thing that sort of kept this club together.
His influence on the youngsters at the club is crucial to Canberra's future. He's not expecting miracles, but their first victory of the season, a 3-0 thumping of the Knights, proves they will be more than nuisance value this season.
Obviously the money's a lot tight this year at the Cosmos. We've got sort of young players and players who have left other clubs and come into the Cosmos to try and prove a point. And it's a new challenge. Every year with the Cosmos seems to be a new challenge. But I mean, that's it shows the character of the players, and I think you learn a lot more about players when they're faced with new challenges rather than sitting in a comfort zone at a good club and and a good pay packet and not really sort of out to prove anything.
His caravan park buddy is also a true journeyman. He's played Premier League with Swindon Town, a stint in Holland, back to England, then to Sydney United, Singapore, Marconi, Olympic, and now Canberra.
Right, mate. See you tomorrow. Catch ya. See ya.
It's nice to know that you're going to be playing every week with, the exception of a terrible run of form or the odd injury. So it's nice to be involved a lot more. And I mean, my last 2 years at Marconi and Olympic have not been as I would have hoped. I got the odd injury and then missed a couple of weeks training and then lose your fitness, and we lose your fitness, you lose your form. But yeah, this year the signs are encouraging to begin with.
It's probably fair to say Marcus's career was on its knees before his mate Robbie threw him a lifeline, but he's now proving a huge asset for the Cosmos.
I spoke to Tom at the end of last season before I spoke to anyone else, and he seemed keen, and Robbie, like you say, he's putting a good word for me. I say a good word, it's more like holding a gun to Tom's head. But no, things worked out well. Yeah, it's been good.
It's a vital season for Canberra, both on and off the park. With the National League set to trim its clubs to 12, the future of the Cosmos is shaky. Money and resources are tight, but as a team, Robbie is counting on pure enthusiasm and pride to pull them through.
We have got a lot of young players in the team, and every year you seem to sort of run into new players and new faces, and hopefully along the way I can help out in some small way with somebody, and I think that's probably the benefit that I can offer to the Cosmos at this stage, the main benefit. But you know, it's also up to the players who want to learn. They have to listen and understand that sometimes things take a while to get to where you want to go. But the main thing that players have to realise is that if you really believe in yourself and you want to do something, you can achieve it, and it's basically up to you to work hard and do that.
And they'll have some fun along the way.
Yeah, what you got? Pasta for entree again? Usual main meal. Yeah.
Well, we talked about the good, the bad, the ugly. Dominic Longo, that is behind-the-scenes revelation from those two.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Actually, it's great to see Robbie doing his laundry now, but at least his pretty much meal hasn't changed any. A few beers never goes astray.
What a well-balanced diet.
They'll be fighting over the slab, won't they, Dom?
That's for sure. There'll be a few cat fights in that caravan before a game.
Carbohydrate carbohydrate.
Look, it's great
lighting.
to see him. Just quickly, Marcus. I mean, he's a fantastically talented player, I believe, and the last 2 years haven't been kind to him. I know it's his lifeline down there in Canberra. I know how important it is for him to succeed this year. I think he can do it, and I think the league needs players like Marcus around. He's got the goods.
We're just talking about experience earlier with Dominic as well. You've got Robbie Hooker, John Angelucci, David Millen as well, and a couple of young boys, Hager and Imaya from Blacktown as part of the squad. So, I think Tommy's going to have a fairly competitive side. Whether they're going to be good enough to make the top six, I don't know. No, actually, I do a weighting. No, they're not going to be good enough to make the top six.
Well, no, I mean, talking about weighting, he does say that's the toughest job, doesn't it, for Tommy Sabani's coach? But after seeing that,
now we all know.
I think he's got some right ammunition to use against all his players. But you're right, Nick. It's a tough assignment every week for them. But does that lift some of the troubles for them?
Look, it gives some of the younger boys who are coming from the state league, and this is the formula that I had initially at Wollongong. As I said earlier, Hager and Imaya, John Angelucci, obviously going back to Canberra. So these boys, one, have got something to prove, and two, want to take the next step, especially in the younger case of Imaya, who I feel has got a big future. So Tommy's got a workable squad, and I think that's critical if he wants to be in or around the top six.
Well, certainly Canberra the cellar, sometimes Marconi the penthouse. That's your role this year. Dominic, good luck. Thanks very much for joining us on Soccer Central tonight.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Rob. It's been a pleasure, mate.
All right, good luck in the derby on the weekend. But we take to the go-kart track with South Melbourne, and Adelaide's Aurelio Vidmar joins us. That's next on Soccer Central.
Hi, my name's Conbuzianis. We're here for the South Melbourne Go-Kart Championship race down in Sunshine with 8 karts. Taking a bit of a break for the normal scene, and we're looking for a very, very good race between the boys. Apparently Steve Panopoulos and Vaughan Conveny are the favourites for today. Steve, just want to ask you a question, mate. How did you go in the last race with the South Melbourne boys, mate?
I was runner-up last 2 years in a row, mate, so I'm looking to get #1 position this year.
Apparently there is strong rumours that you'll be taking over Ralph Shoemaker in the Ferrari team. Murray Walker, had a chat to him last night, and he said that you're looking at negotiating a contract with Ferrari.
Well, we'll see how we go in qualifying, mate. It looks like I'll be struggling today, though. I'm right at the back of the pack, so we'll have to get a good qualifying and see how we go in the race.
Well, thanks very much, Vaughan.
No worries.
Yes, well, troops, we just finished the qualifying races here, and be sure that the favourites were up there, and Stevie Penner ended up finished first in the qualifying times. What did you think of the qualifying time that you did, Mr. Panopoulos?
Yeah, I was happy to get pole, but I've just seen the times, and I think I was when you came second by like 0.09 of a second. But I don't really think it means much, because every year I've got a pole position, but haven't won for the last 2 years. I've come second, so Warney always takes me at the start, so I'm going to be really concentrating on the start this year.
Yes.
What an exhilarating race that was. Stevie Penner, how do you feel?
Oh, it was good to win. It was a good race, actually. It was exciting. Varney was pushing me all the way. I think he took me in the first corner halfway through, early in the race, and then I was chasing him for the whole race, and it was hard to catch. And then it was a bit of a mix-up at the first corner where he went to take someone. He was slightly pushed off the track, and I just slipped through, and with a few laps to go, he wasn't going to catch me. So.
Certainly no question, as racing drivers, the Melbourne players certainly make great soccer players. And speaking of great players, Aurelio Vidmar has been given the task of resurrecting the force in Adelaide. Born and bred in the city of churches, he returned to the fold last season for his second stint for Adelaide. Given his passion for the club and for the city, it's no surprise he's skippering the side, and Aurelio joins us as the force prepare for a trek across the Tasman to meet the Kingz this week. And Aurelio, firstly, good evening and welcome to Soccer Central. Great to have you with us, but I'm sure there's relief in the camp that by round 4 you've picked up victory number 1.
Yeah, we have. I think after 12 games last season we had 4 points, so we got another 8 games to get 1 point.
Well, certainly Brad Hassel stepped up and took a lot of responsibility and got on the charts again after scoring in round 2. That's satisfying as part of your aspect of the game?
Yeah, listen, Bradley's been one of our better players so far this season. He's taken the extra responsibility. He's one of the older players and has been at this club for 6 or 7 years. So I think that little bit of responsibility has helped on the park for him.
Aurelio, Mike Cockerell, look, Zoran has drawn a lot of parallels between the squad this year being very young and the squad in 1986 when you, in fact, were one of the young players. Do you agree with Zoran? Do you think this team can perhaps emulate the achievements of that 1986 side?
I'll have to disagree, I think, Mike. We have probably 10 youngsters between the ages of 16 and 20, and we have a squad of about 20. And in 1986, our squad was 14. That was our total squad. So we had the same 11 players playing week in, week out, and with 2 reserves back in those days. And we were very fortunate we didn't have any injuries, and the same 11 played just about the whole year. I think this year we do have a lot of youngsters, and they've probably had their chance a little bit earlier than normal. There's I think 7 of the kids now have actually stepped out onto the park, where I think maybe 5 or even 6 years ago these youngsters probably wouldn't have had a chance. Now they're getting their chance, and the club believes this is the future, and there is a little bit of talent in there. Hopefully one day a couple of these players can represent Australia.
They really did stand up on the weekend then, Aurelio. What was the feeling going into the game?
Sorry, what was that last week?
What was the feeling going into the victory that took place over Eastern Pride on the weekend?
Oh, listen, that was a game that both teams had to win, and we went in half-time 2-0 down, and heads were down, and I had a a quick chat to rectify a few things at half time, and the second half was a totally different game, and Scott Tunbridge actually got us on the way with a good headed goal, and then Bradley scored probably another one of goal of the season. Very difficult volley, and he's absolutely smashed it into the top right hand corner. So it was a great victory coming from behind, scoring 4 goals in the second half, and obviously having such a young squad, that little bit of confidence will help us for the rest of the season.
Aurelio, Nick Theodorakopoulos here. If I was to say that you're going to have, say, a poor start to the season, do you think this time round, having so many inexperienced players, do you think you'll be able to come back like the customary run of Adelaide City of yesteryear?
Well, I think you would say you wouldn't, but I think at the same time, I think today we're playing a lot better than we are at the same time last year. I think we're a lot more free-flowing, and I think that comes about with the children, the kids that we got. They actually don't really care too much, and a little bit more free spirit, so to speak. And we are a lot more attacking. We've had, in all our games so far, we've had many shots on goal, which probably in the years gone by, where we really never had too many shots on goal. And now that we're taken these chances, and if you have 10 chances, at least you never know, 1 or 2 might go in, and that's what we're doing at the moment, and I think that's what the big difference is.
Vidi, talking about shots on goal, it looks like you'll be missing once again for the game against Auckland this weekend, probably Claudio Pelosi as well. But young Scott Tunbridge stepped into the breach last week. That's obviously important for you, and obviously it's also important to get a roll on. You need to get a result from the trip to Auckland. Yeah, look, this is definitely a really tough trip, probably one of the toughest trips in the season. We had 2 great victories over there last season, both games winning 2-0, and but we were pushed right to the last minute, and I think it'll be exactly the same on Friday night. And the kids will really know what it is to play away. The trip in itself, flying over, is going to be really taxing on them. So I think we've really got to stick together. We had a little chat last night, the players. We're going to stick together and try to keep it tight all the way through, and never know, you could always nick a goal and get a victory.
Yeah, certainly that's part of the game plan. And the question is, will Adelaide climb further from the bottom with a win over the Kingz, who will be keen to return to winning form after copying a thumping to the Spirit last week? All the action right here on C7 with a full replay on Friday night. Certainly an interesting game. Aurelio, you've got some challenges ahead of you. Thanks very much for joining us on Soccer Central tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Good luck to all the boys, and Zoran, who'll be looking forward to some shooting it from outside the box, no doubt.
We'll do our best. Thank you.
Thanks, Aurelio. And when we return on Soccer Central, we'll talk Socceroos as Australia prepares for a showdown with Scotland. Welcome back. And there's every chance we'll have a new leader in the National Soccer League after this weekend. And it could well come from the second-placed showdown between Sydney Olympic and Carlton. Both sides in great form and undefeated. Olympic probably a little unlucky not to claim all 3 points in the West against Perth last week. Their defence is awesome, conceding just 1 goal, and that was from the penalty spot.
Yeah, Rob, Olympic do have problems, though, and their depth is going to be sorely tested in this game against Carlton. They've got problems with Murisic, Bailey, Wilson, Halpin, and if you take those 4 players out of the squad, then you're going to get down to a few young players coming into calculations. Not ideal for Branko Chelina. They are at home, of course, at Belmore, and the service, thankfully, is improving there. Carlton go into the game in good form and in good spirits, but Olympic start has been very impressive. I thought the penalty there was very harsh against them last week, and you know, they're a confidence side, a confidence club, as you know, Nick, and when things are going well on the park, then things are a lot easier off the park as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they seem to happen easier off the park when things are going well on the park. But just going back to what you said about experience, I don't know, are these boys definitely out this week? Maybe there's a little bit of foxing going into the match.
Yeah, maybe, but as I said, it's about depth, isn't it? And they did lose a lot of players last season, Sydney Olympic. I think something like 8 or 9 key players have left the club, and this is the first time this season, but we'll see how many good young players they've got in reserve.
Well, Mike, you've heralded the defence at Olympic. You said it's a solid core. It's the basis upon where they're going to go from this year. But, well, if Carlton knocked 4 last week past Sydney United, that will be a test. Who's going to be on the top goal scorer?
Well, as I mentioned, Scotty Bailey could be out this week, and that's a big hole for Sydney Olympic. I think that back three of Juric, Bailey and Sinisic has been absolutely outstanding this season. Clint Bolton in goals as well. So without Scotty Bailey, they've got big problems. Carlton can score freely. Archie Thompson has been on fire. Ange Motsiopoulos got his first goal last week. They've got Andrew Stabber-Marth, I think, coming back from suspension. So, you know, all the problems that Carlton have off the park in terms of their crowds, etc., they're still delivering on the field. They're a very good side.
I'm a big fan of Carlton's as well. I think the fact that they haven't had a big player change or their roster tampered with, I think the fact that Andrew Marth's back this week is a big plus for them. And let's not forget the quality of Colosimo. I think Simon's still playing some good football, and I think Simon's a player that can turn the game on the drop of a hat.
Player you know well, Nick, Robbie Middleby, you had him when you started at Wollongong, and if you look at their game last week, a couple of the goals came from crosses from Robbie Middleby, who was playing on the left, so he's a good signing, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Roberts. His speed up and down that right-hand side will cause a lot of havoc, and he can play both left and right, and if we go back to his year at the Auckland Kingz, he played both sides. So I think you'll find that Robert Middleby, as I said earlier, Colosimo and Andrew Packer, very, very big fan of Andrew Packer's as well.
All right, well, let's just focus on the biggest scene, and it was the qualifying draw for the World Club Championship in January that has been released. And of course, Wollongong, as NSL champions, will be Australia's representative. They've drawn the tougher of the groups and will take on the league champions from Fiji, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Solomon Islands and Tonga.
I don't know how they did this draw. I've got to be honest. I don't know how they came up with it, but they claim it wasn't seeded, and they've produced the most unbelievably lopsided draw. I know a little bit about Oceania, and you're going to have Napier City Rovers from New Zealand. You're going to have the Fijian composite team, really, because the rules will allow them to bring players from all the other clubs in Fiji, and the club champions of the Solomons. Now, they're three of the strongest countries in Oceania playing against Wollongong Wolves in the other half of the draw. You've got the sort of teams that, you know, Nick and I in the over 35s could give a pasting to. So it's a poorly worked draw, and it's a much tougher task for Wollongong than it probably should be.
It's an inequity, isn't it, Nick? But how do you see that, the pairing that the Wolves have got?
Now I know why you invited me on the show instead of Paul wanting to comment. No, I think that it really doesn't make that much difference. I mean, you've got to get through. You finish first or second in one group, you've got to play first or second in the other group. So irrespective whether you've got the New Zealand champions or the Fijian champions in the other group, you're still going to meet, Mick, and I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. If anything, and if Ronnie does his homework well, and I'm sure he will with Stuart Beattie, you know they'll have a good look at Napier City, which is going to be one of the two sides, along with Fijian composite side, as you mentioned, that are going to test Wollongong.
Just quickly, this weekend, an OFC official is going to Port Moresby in New Guinea to assess the facilities there, and if they're not up to scratch, I think the tournament will be moved to Auckland, which I'm sure will suit Wollongong a lot more.
All right, well, let's just get back and remind ourselves about the National League weekend this weekend. It's round 5, and we'll be featuring all these matches here on C7. On Friday, Adelaide City makes the trek across the Tasman to take on the Kingz. That match replayed at 7:30 p.m. On Saturday, a huge crowd expected at North Power Stadium when the Northern Spirit meets Newcastle. This will be a beauty. The replay, well, it's on at 9:30 p.m. And on Sunday, it's another great Sydney derby with United and Marconi doing battle. All the action live on C7. Well, enough to get us interested and whetting our appetite for a weekend. Some good derbies, Sydney and Melbourne especially, so the fans should turn out.
Let's hope we get a big crowd at Edenza, and the crowds have been pretty good there this season so far, but this is the game they always talk about out in the west, isn't it? There's just, I think, a kilometre between the two clubs, and Sydney United on top of the table.
Yeah, you can see the lights from each other's ground. But overseas, and plenty of Australians featuring heavily in leagues throughout the world. none more so than the Big V, Mark Viduka, who scored all 4 of Leeds' goals as they beat Liverpool 4-3. His form is sure to put a smile on the face of Socceroos coach Frank Farina. In English Division 1, Stan Lazaridis was one of Birmingham City's best in their 1-1 draw with Bolton. And in round 3 of the Worthington Cup, Sean Murphy played a full match in Sheffield United's loss. In the Scottish Premier League, Stuart Lovell played a full match as Hibernian beat Dundee 2-1. Josip Skoko also getting plenty of match time for Racing Genk in the Belgian First Division, while Paul Agostino was amongst the goals once again in the German First Division. Marco Bresciano also bagged his first goal for Empoli in the Italian Second Division. And looking at the top goal scorers overseas, and Mark Viduka's 4 goals putting the pressure on Paul Agostino for the top spot. Viduka's form for Leeds drawing plenty of interest from clubs throughout the world, including Barcelona. And that could not lead us onto a better topic, Michael, than the match on November 15. Frank finally releasing this squad.
Yeah, and Viduka and Agostino up front, and what a pairing that is. I mean, they're both in rich scoring form. Obviously, there's injury problems with Aloisi. That's why he's not there. And I think the selection of Mile Sturjovski is interesting. I think Frank is a little bit worried about the fitness of Agostino. He was going to bring Marco Bresciano into the squad. He went for a forward instead of a midfielder. But a few names that may not be regulars there to the people watching, but if you work out a first 11 out of those players, and I've done that, and it's a very, very good squad. I think the key aspect here is Frank will pick players who are playing week in and week out. So we may see Sean Murphy, for instance, and Tony Vidmar at the back instead of Hayden Fox and Stephen Labatt. And Nick, I think that's a good thing because we just can't afford to have players going to these games without match fitness.
No, we've been talking about this, for the last couple of years, I should say. The fact is that the boys that have been selected in the past, from time to time, haven't been getting the match play or the time on the pitch. And now there's a formula there where Frank's working on. I think it's very good to see. I'm a little bit disappointed on a personal level. I thought someone like Scotty Chipperfield should definitely been on the playing, Mick.
Yeah, well, the issue
there's only one player,
yeah.
Michael, out of a squad of 20.
Long way to go to sit on the bench,
overseas.
that's what Frank's saying.
Yeah. But is that a surprise or is it just reality again? I mean, the stats.
Well, I mean, I think
based.
Frank defends the cases of the local players, and we all do. But his argument is, if I'm going to put a bloke for a play-in for 30 hours and he's going to sit on the bench, it's better to bring a bloke who's only got to go half an hour, and that's why he has overlooked the likes of Archie Thompson and Scotty Chipperfield.
Guest Aurelio Vidmar, he's not there. Tony's brother is, but you felt Chipperfield, even his inclusion in the past, guaranteed or warranted a position, Nick?
Yeah, I'm not just pushing Scotty's barrow. I mean, there's other players. We've got the Player of the Year, and I think Scotty's going to be there or thereabouts when the squad's going to be finally picked for the big games. But I think people like Lovell as well as Vidmar, with Scottish experience, are going to be the first picked against Scotland next Wednesday.
Well, ticket sales have been good, Mike. There's a lot of interest. There's no question about that at Hampden.
Yeah, well, they've done the right thing. The Scottish Football Association, we know that the Scots don't like to part with their money, so they've kept the ticket prices nice and low, and they reckon they'll be close to a full house at Hampden. I think it's 1985, I think, when we last played at Hampden Park in Glasgow. I remember that World Cup qualifier, although I've come to think that we did play a game since then, but we haven't had a win there yet, and this could be the first.
Well, that was fiery to say the least. A lot of smog, a lot of mist, Nick, and it was a classic game, and certainly the likes of Joe Watson, John Cosmina were there, but totally different scenario now.
Obviously, but we've got bigger names now. We've got Mark Viduka, we've got Vidmar, players that have gone well and truly beyond what anyone expected. And we just have to go back to last Saturday night, watching live, Mark Viduka was just absolutely outstanding.
Viduka 3, Liverpool 3, Mike, a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's just one thing we should mention, that squad that we did show on the monitor before. I think Mark Schwarzer has rung Frank Farina today and said, look, my knee is not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I want to be in Scotland as well. So that's a bit of added strength for the Socceroos.
Well, we'll certainly be following that with interest, Nick. I know you are following a lot of games, even from a distance. You still are following them. Thanks very much for joining us on the show tonight.
You're more than welcome, Rob.
Michael, good calling on the weekend.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on Soccer Central. We'll be back next week with all the highlights from the National Soccer League. Make sure you catch the Round 5 action right here on C7 throughout the weekend.
Bye.